Is Donald Trump and his corrupt DOJ quietly surrendering in their fight to continue to bring on what they refer to as interim United States attorneys? Is it a quiet surrender, or is it a also very loud surrender because we and others are bringing attention to it? Take a look at this article right here that Harry Litman published. Quiet surrender. Why is the Department of Justice yielding to the law? Yielding. Trump yields to the law on U.S. attorney appointments. And one of the points that Harry Litman makes is that very quietly, you had basically Pam Bondi and Lindsay Halligan work to submit Halligan's name. She was the interim United States attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who was ruled to be an unlawful interim because there was already an interim appointed. You only get one shot as an interim, as you all know, by watching these legal recaps, and she was disqualified. And while she was still putting her name on the pleadings, she submitted her name. It's arrogant what she did, frankly, to them, but she submitted her name to the United States Senate to be formally confirmed or go through a confirmation process where the Senate will now have to vote on whether to confirm the very unqualified Lindsay Halligan, who's not just very unqualified. And by unqualified, I mean, a person who's never worked in a federal prosecutor's office in her life. She was an insurance attorney, beauty pageant contestant before then, was not known to be a good lawyer, even as an insurance lawyer, didn't work at any firm or have any cases of note, and just kind of viewed generally as like, who is this person? She kind of worked her way into Trump's world somehow. Figure out how that she worked her way into his world. And then Trump picked her specifically to go after his political enemies, New York Attorney General Letitia James Comey. And we know how that is gone. So even if you view her being a fake interim as the trial audition, you couldn't have done a worse job. I mean, and I'm serious. And I'm a law professor at USC. And the law students, okay, who take my class for about 2 days would do a better job if they were appointed as an interim United States attorney. I guarantee it, than Halligan did. She made every mistake, and not just mistake, engaged in malicious and, in my view, deeply unethical behavior, from putting on a witness in a grand jury who was tainted because they saw attorney-client information, to providing fake jury instructions to the grand jury, fake legal instructions to the grand jury, to submitting an indictment as though it was the true bill, as though here's the indictment as it relates to Comey that the full grand jury never even saw. And I guess it was good fortune, if you will, for Halligan that she got disqualified because the courts didn't get to rule on all that other unethical stuff. She just got disqualified. But then they submit her name to the Senate to say, hey, Senate, we think that she's qualified. Now, it's obviously ridiculous. If the Senate confirms her, I don't think they will confirm her. I don't think she'll get through the blue slip process in Virginia. I think Trump's doing this to just whine and say, look how unfair it is. I mean, the mere submission of her name is the biggest FU to our justice system. But then again, the entire DOJ isn't totally imploded and is viewed now as basically some scammy law firm at this point. Unfortunately, is the DOJ's reputation amongst federal judges. But we're not just seeing it with Halligan. Let's bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds Substack, podcast, and YouTube channel. Subscribe to Talking Feds on YouTube. Harry, this is your piece. And you don't just focus on Halligan, but you focus on how, you was that ruling in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals that Alina Habba, who was one of these fake interim United States attorneys in New Jersey, she got removed, basically evicted because they disqualified her. She refused to leave. And now the circuit courts are basically doing eviction orders. Like, yes, by disqualified, we meant to get out, because the Trump regime argued disqualification doesn't mean I have to leave. And the circuit courts are saying, yeah, what do you think it means? Get out. The Delaware United States attorney, same thing. We're seeing proceedings now in the Ninth Circuit because this is Trump's overall strategy. Don't go through a confirmation process, which is required by law. Just, I'm going to do it. But now, as your article says, quiet surrender. Talk to us about it, Harry.
Okay, so first point is maybe this is Trump's strategy, Ben. It might be that somebody with some presence of mind in DOJ is saying, let's keep kind of pushing forward and placating the boss. But there's a big problem here with these legal rulings in other areas. They sort of will just ignore them and barge forward. But what's happening for these U.S. attorney rulings, it happened with Halligan, it happened for Alina Habba, and it doesn't have to be the reprisal prosecutions. If you're an illegitimate United States attorney, every indictment that you oversee is in some peril. So you will see until they figure this out, a series of defendants coming forward for anything, including really serious crimes, saying, hey, guess what? Alice in Wonderland over here indicted me. That means she was a nullity. That means it's a nullity. That means I go free and we start again. And that means big cost of public safety and, a political cost to the Trump administration. What was really interesting to me, and thanks for mentioning the Substack, is not that they're doing it all together, and I think they've thought it through, but really quietly. There was no fanfare to the Catherine Leavitt fielded a question at the White House spokesperson says, yes, Halligan's our Trump's nominee, but they otherwise would have just presented it quietly. And the real thing that happened, she submitted her Senate Judiciary Committee questionnaire. I'm here to tell you, having submitted a couple of these, they are no walk in the park. They represent a ton of work. And in her case, they represent a public document that's going to have some very interesting entries because, among other things, you're supposed to put down your 5 or 10 most important and pertinent cases to your nomination. As you say, there was that insurance coverage involving the dog and the Buick. I mean, she's got nothing. And so it's going to look so threadbare. And then there are other things too. You go back to birth in terms of where you've lived and getting people who can the FBI talk to, because it's the basis for the full background search that they do. So that's the second thing, a big undertaking. And yes, it would look like, this is how we square everything and make it kosher, because what all the courts have said is, just as you were saying, after you do the interim, now it's time to put up or shut up. Let's see your actual nominee. You can nominate anyone you want. We'll see what the Senate does with them. But before that, it's the court that appoints. Well, this is their way of making it look like they're trying to do it on the square, but it's clearly a joke isn't the right word. Anyone who's thought about it there, and somebody has, knows it is completely DOA. For starters, I think if it actually went to a vote, no way she gets, no way every Republican steps up and says this pretend prosecutor who made these ludicrous mistakes somehow could be qualified to serve. But you pointed up the blue slip process. There are 2 Democratic senators in Virginia, Kaine and Warner. They are just not going to submit their blue slips. And same thing is the case in Delaware. And remember, Trump went after Grassley on just this. Grassley and everybody in the Senate can't bow low enough to whatever Trump says, with this exception. The senators do not want to give up their, fairly anti-democratic, it's been controversial forever, but they have the power with the blue slip to say, if this nominee is from my state, I'm not going to let him or her go through. And there's 0 chance, or maybe less than 0, that they both submit their blue slip, meaning Lindsay Halligan doesn't go forward. So now the question is, so why are they doing it? Because anybody has to know that. Maybe it's just a sort of, peace with honor as they see it. Maybe Trump has in mind a kind of going to war against the blue slip itself and the corrupt Democrats, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe just someone at the White House was able to say, we're still pushing, boss. But then giving her the kind of exit strategy. But the quietness of it, Ben, really struck me. Same thing happened with the Letitia James indictments, a little far afield, but they very quietly went back in without doing anything and got their teeth kicked in again when there wasn't a true bill. Haba, the same thing. She could have tried to stick in there brassily as she did for the Third Circuit after it came out, until it came out. But they are seeing, it's not even the writing on the wall, it's the writing on the papers that judges issue, and understanding that if they took their normal, to quote the life tenured Emile Beauvais, fuck you, stance to the courts, the immediate upshot could be a huge cost in public safety. You know, the EDVA, where Halligan's been, they wanted to get her in. It's the biggest district in the country for like national security, big defense fraud, and the like. So to have every case that comes out of there be so jeopardized and questioned, that's really, you know, completely guns up the works. They most want to do Trump's bidding, but bringing whole offices to stop, you know, I think they know they just can't do it, and they have to quietly retreat.
Now, I want to give a shout out, though, a serious shout out to the insurance lawyers out there, both defense and plaintiff side. And
I'm sorry, you're right.
And to be fair, you know, look,
maybe she has a record.
I worked as a plaintiff's lawyer on cases, and I have a great deal of respect, and we both do, for the plaintiff's bar and the defense bar in civil litigation. We know we have a lot of listeners who are there, and your work is important. I think you would also acknowledge that your work doesn't necessarily mean that tomorrow you're going to become the United States attorney and become a federal prosecutor and do, you know, there are expertises. And this is a helpful note for our audience. People take certain career paths in law that bring them certain places. And when you are in law school, oftentimes the jobs you take guide you. Sometimes you zigzag into different places that you don't think you're going to be at. For example, you could be a litigator, then end up as a YouTube podcaster one day. But in all seriousness, you know, there are paths where you take a path like Harry. Harry goes to top law school. He clerks for justices, Supreme Court justices. You work at a federal prosecutor's office. You may go back and forth into private practice, but then back into the federal prosecutor's office. You climb the ranks to reach certain ladders, and climb the ladder to reach certain ranks. After getting certain positions, you've prosecuted enough cases. You've had leadership positions, and then you are viewed as someone who's now qualified for a more senior role. You show that you've done a good job in that senior role, then you get to a more senior role. And then maybe you could be contemplated for being a, you know, number 2 or a United States attorney. And someone like Harry does come in there, you know, with a certain political belief. I mean, Harry, you know that someone may be somewhere ideologically, but you must demonstrate, and I'll let you speak, Harry, that your political ideology is left at the front door when you are a prosecutor, and your experience showing that no fear or favor is the way you've gone about your career is what sets you apart from someone who's purely a partisan politician type of person who's out there for political purposes. And once you clear experience, letting people know that you can be no fear or favor in your prosecutorial ethos, then you still may not be confirmed by the Senate. And it's a very rigorous process. And then ultimately, if you don't get confirmed, and Harry was somebody who was a United States attorney, and Harry knows this process better than anybody. But at the same time, you know, you may not be confirmed, and then you pick somebody else who does get confirmed, and that's life. That's the process. And so when I approach this, I truly try to approach this from non-political. Like, this is about experience, qualification. So Harry, I'll let you have the last word there, but I wanted to explain that to people as well, because people just have different specialties in the law. And the path that you embarked on as a top prosecutor is different than one that insurance lawyers embark on, is different than ones that trust and estate lawyers, is different than ones that transactional lawyers embark on.
Yeah. So first, point well taken. What I meant to say, it's my impression that Lindsay Halligan's experience as an insurance lawyer was fairly threadbare when she came to Trump's attention. Obviously, you're right. There are different practice areas, It's also true, though, when you're choosing top criminal prosecutors, you really look for people who have been prosecutors in the offices before. Same with choosing people in main justice. But I want to say thank you for your summary and my having demonstrated, hopefully, justice without fear, favor. It is also the mindset of the system. So when I became U.S. attorney, both senators who did submit blue slips were Republican. But the idea that, like, okay, he's a Democrat, not our first pick, but he's just gonna do it on the square. So that it's not simply that, you show it yourself, but the system depends on it, that sometimes they're Democrat presidents, sometimes they're Republican presidents, and what you really want is someone for whom, it just doesn't matter very much. You hear this a lot about Justice Alito was the U.S. attorney in New Jersey, and there's a regular on our podcast who was his first assistant, said never even knew what party he was. It just doesn't come into play. Compare and contrast with Alina Habba, who's now stepped aside. She literally became, when she was chosen for U.S. attorney internally, she said, I hope I can use this position to help turn New Jersey red. If I had said anything like that about, well, keep Pennsylvania blue or whatever, I should have been thrown on my ass, and immediately. It's a nonpartisan position. So we start with the problem of these people who aren't legally appointed properly, that in addition, their real credentials are not the conventional prosecutorial chops or knowledge. They are there to do political bidding, exactly the antithesis of what U.S. attorneys are supposed to be. So it's that combination. As you mentioned, Ben, it's compounded with someone like Halligan, who had never been in U.S. attorney's office even, and all the real blunders and constitutional errors she made in the grand jury. But that combo of inexperience and partisanship in the Donald Trump model, that's really what's made it, completely untenable, and I think has required them to sort of see a little bit reason, even as adamant as Trump has been and Bondi has been. President gets to choose his person. It's like, nah, I don't think this is going to fly, guys, and they are quietly walking it back.
Harry Litman runs the Talking Feds YouTube channel, so search Talking Feds, subscribe now, subscribe to the Talking Feds Substack and podcast. Thanks, Harry. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Ben.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.